Whether you keep them in your home or love to see them in theirs, these are the creatures that bring us all together.
Reptiles. We're going to be delving into the experiences of reptile lovers from around the block and around the world. This is the Reptile Talk Podcast. What's going on, everybody? This is Jeremy Turgeon from Brassman Reptiles.
And I'm Rob, and I'm Creeping It Real. And this is our first international guest.
That's right, international guests on Reptile Talk. We're super, super excited to have KB Reptiles in the house from Canada.
What's up, guys? How you doing? Yeah. How you guys doing tonight?
We're good. We're good. Enjoying a nice, I'll say, spring day. It was beautiful out today. Sun was out.
No snow.
No snow, so we're happy.
That's where it's at. You can't beat that. Have you guys gotten to go out field herping at all yet?
So funny enough, we were up to go visit Carrie's brother the other day, just dropping off some stuff to them. And we did our first little herping there because he lives out in the country.
Cool.
And found 3 garter snakes and a bullfrog or some sort of frog of some sort.
Cool.
We're like, hey, our first herping this year.
Hell
There
yeah.
you go.
That's honestly usually how it goes for me. I'm not like, oh, I'm going to go do a trip and specifically look for things. I'm like out and about and I'm like, oh shit, a frog. Oh God, I got to catch it. And I like dive on it and shit.
And quite honestly, that's how our best ones happen. We have a conservation area close to where we live here, like literally 5 minutes away from the house. And
Cool.
we've
That's
gone
awesome.
field herping with some of the kids on and off. Just we have a few kids, so we like to separate it when at all possible.
We have 5 kids.
We have 5 kids,
Woo.
so it's it makes life interesting. So whoever wants to come herping on individual days, we go. But on those days where we go with hooks and phones and you're ready, we see nothing.
Yeah.
except
Yeah,
Of course.
mosquitoes.
Of course.
That's it.
Of course.
Yep.
Yep. Man, I had Kev came up to me last week at like the end of the day, and he was like, hey, come with me. We're going up the street. We're going to look for bullfrogs. And I was like, okay. It's not like I had anything planned tonight or whatever, but okay. And, I mean, we found some bullfrogs, but we found way more mosquitoes than
Oh, yeah.
bullfrogs.
Oh,
and I was
yeah.
less than thrilled for a last-minute excursion to go field herping.
Yeah, I can imagine for sure.
Yeah. That's our experience is like 99% of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not about that.
Our most successful herping is if we just turn the lights off in the reptile room downstairs,
Yep.
put on a blindfold, and just go grab different tanks. And we're like, oh my God, look what we found today.
Look at that.
Wow, take a guess.
See, Nerd has wild tokays that live in the upstairs rooms. So every now and again, I'll be like, I'm going to go find some tokays. And I just go around flipping on lights at nighttime.
Yep.
And I'm like, look at the size of that one. Now look at the size of that one. Wait, there's a baby over there.
Yeah.
You'll know by the severity of the bite, maybe,
I was
which one you found.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I don't like tokay bites.
No,
Not at
tokay
all.
bites are not fun. No.
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 Oh,
Oh my gosh. All right, so I'm super interested in this because I've had a couple of conversations over the years with reptile keepers in Canada, but comparatively, and we can just focus on ball pythons because I think that's a good foundational place for the industry. But what are some of the biggest differences in the ball python market in Canada compared to the U.S.?
Well, that honestly, it has a few different answers to it. I think one, and I'll throw it right off the bat, not everybody feels comfortable talking about it,
Mhm.
but I think the monetary values and the monetary decisions made by people about ball pythons in the U.S. is much greater than it is in Canada. I think that...
I think everyone, but...
No, not everyone. I mean, I'm going to say this in a general term more so than every individual person, but we've had the privilege of being able to go to a lot of the U.S. shows out there and seeing the diversity and the morphs, some of the morphs that we don't even have here yet in Canada, seeing how the shows out there, people seem to spend a lot more in bigger volumes I see people walk out of shows over there, and I'll even talk about not shows, but you see people walk out of shows over there, and they're not afraid to invest some money. I mean, people are really thinking about their projects, about adding new morphs, about, just trying to take it to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
I think here in Canada, we definitely have a few of the people going in the same direction, but I think the number of it in comparison is smaller. You base even the population of the two countries, and you can see the difference. You just see more of it happening. And then when you take it out of the shows and you just look at even people who are buying from some of the big name ball python breeders out there, or just investing in different projects, people are really putting their foot down and going, you know what, I'm going to go all in over this. I think the mentality here in Canada still is, we want to put our foot in, but not maybe both feet just yet.
Yeah. So still kind of like in a newer stage when it comes to like investment building. Yeah, exactly. I think it's a little bit different. Now then, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of guys here, and then this is where I think some of this goes to proof. We have a lot of excellent breeders up here. I mean, there's a lot of big names, and they'll probably openly tell you that most of their busiest clientele is stuff that they do ship to the U.S.
So, really?
Interesting.
Yeah. Like you talk to some of the big names here, if you Billy from Mutation Creation, Will from RCR, Corey Woods, Chris Towers, a lot of these guys ship international, and a good chunk of that goes to the U.S. market. And it's really nice to see, because we do, the social media stuff, we try to follow as much as possible. And it's really nice to see people buying from some of the Canadian breeders, opening up packages and go, oh my gosh, I got this from so-and-so. And just, helping people realize that our market here is growing, just not quite at the same rate yet.
See, that's wild to me, because I feel like when I look at things like Morph Market for the U.S., I'm like, wow, this is super saturated, and there's just like so many things available that I feel like if people wanted to, they could pretty much stay in the U.S. market and not have to buy internationally. But when you've got people who are working with specific projects and doing, their own specific thing that's, more unique, that's really cool that they've got still a market to export those things, because the cost is just more for the average person if they want to export it from Canada to the U.S. or vice versa. It's going to end up costing them, a couple $100 more to get that animal. And it's cool to see that people are still investing and are willing to do that for the right animal.
Yeah, and I think you said it right there. I think it's for the right animal. I think people, and that's what I love about the hobby, is a lot of people are so focused on their projects that they're not afraid to go, okay, the U.S. has something similar, but I will go and grab that from somebody in Canada or somebody from Europe, because I specifically want that gene. Like, I have to have that gene in play, and they'll go and do it, which I find, and that's where it makes me believe that the hobby is still always going to grow. It's still always going to improve, even though, everybody's heard, even before we got into it, you hear, oh my gosh, watch out, the market is dying. Ball pythons are not a thing anymore. Be careful. And that's our main focus too, is ball pythons. So of course, when we first started, it made us a little bit weary, and we're like, oh, are we doing the right thing? And, going into our 5th year of doing this, we're like, yeah, this is still growing, so much room to grow still.
Yeah, I think that's certainly so now with the focus on social media that the industry has gotten in the last, really just the last 5 years, if you really think about it. It was pretty much unheard of, and I'll use Brian Barczyk as a reference. Like, it was pretty much unheard of to see somebody involved in reptiles on a social media platform with 2 million followers.
Never.
Like, that's
not a
like
thing.
Of course it's still unheard of because he's like the only guy, but it wasn't even fathomable 10 years ago that would even be a thing. So I think now that there's that much publicity, the industry is going to continue to grow in a very big way, which of course has its positives and its negatives. But I do agree that it's amazing to see how much growth is still actually happening internationally. Even with all that going on, because I remember looking at Morph Market a couple weeks ago and seeing that there's like just under 900 ball python breeders in the United States registered on Morph Market.
Holy crap!
That's a lot.
That's
and that's
lot.
not even including those people who aren't on Morph Market, like the small time breeder that maybe has 10 females that they breed, and they're like, no, I've got a little network, I just do the local reptile shows, I don't really do anything else because I don't need to. So I mean, that like blew me away. So also just like Rob, like to hear that there's people that are willing to invest in importing an animal from out of the country is awesome to hear, because it on paper it seems like that isn't necessary.
Yeah, I totally agree. Even Carrie and I, the first time we ever did a shipment out of the U.S., that we've never sold anything to the U.S., but we've bought snakes from the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, we were like shaking, because we're like, okay, first of all, the Canadian dollar compared to the U.S. dollar is not great. So then when you add in the shipping, cost of animals, everything else, we're like, oh my God, we better be ready for this. And, and it felt good once the animals arrived, and you're like, okay, I know this is an investment. I know it's going to help us, either speed up projects or get us involved in something that we just haven't found here that we wanted yet. And now it's just become a more regular thing for us. Now we do the same thing. We look at Morph Market. We're lucky again to have a great circle of friends in and out of the U.S. So it really costs us nothing to pick up the phone sometimes and say, hey, do you know anybody working with XYZ project? And they're like, oh yeah, contact so-and-so. Tell them we sent you, whatever. But, and sure enough, hookups come, and it's like, oh wow, fantastic, thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
That's really cool.
It's certainly one of the things that I've seen as social media is kind of taken over the directions of where the industry kind of goes is as much as that ensues a bit of chaos, it also really seems to strengthen the foundation of the industry overall, between those who are, not concerned about the drama. They're in it because they love it and they want to see people succeed and I mean, hell, just enjoy the damn things.
Right?
That's the whole reason we got into it.
Oh my God, you know what? You said it so right. Carrie and I have, we've seen it. It's posted all over different things we follow. There's so much, stuff going on every day in the reptile community as far as drama goes, and we're like, why? Just enjoy this. Not everybody's going to share the same opinion. Not everybody has the same loves. Not everybody's going to agree with projects you're working on, animals you keep, how you keep them, whatever.
Right.
But if you're enjoying and the care of the animal comes first, and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, then just enjoy it. Like, really, just have a good time.
Yep.
Seriously.
The world would be a better place if we could all just enjoy it.
I think that there is a shift going on in the greater reptile community, though, that there are more people who are going, you know what, I don't want to have a 100 animal collection. I want to have a 10 animal collection or a 20 animal collection that I just really get to enjoy watching the different habits of the different types of reptiles that I keep. And, there are some people who definitely push that to the extreme, where they're like the bearded dragon mom and dads who are like, I'm going to give him a stuffy toy and I'm going to read him a bedtime story at night every night. And those people are crazy.
Oh, God, I know.
But there's also the people who are just like, you know what, I've got a couple snakes because I really like snakes, and I've got like one arboreal snake, I've got a couple terrestrial snakes, I've got a Kenyan sand boa for something a little fossorial, and I just really like the different animals that I keep, and I really like that I'm seeing more of that. And it's not about how many snakes can you keep and how many snakes can you breed, it's more about you just enjoying those animals that you get to work with.
Well, and that really is the basis of how Carrie and I started off. We never started with a single ball python. When Carrie and I
what?
first met,
What? Hold on.
Hold on a second. Drop in, people. This is going to be the best part of the segment right here. Yeah, but honestly, ball pythons was an afterthought. When Carrie and I first met, Carrie had bearded dragons, and she was big into fish. She had chameleons and fish. So she had saltwater stuff going on. She had seahorses. I mean, she was into a couple of different things. I had a bearded dragon and a scorpion. And
Really?
I was like, okay, this is cool. I really didn't know how I felt about snakes. I always wanted them, but local around here, it was easy to get an Asian forest scorpion and a bearded dragon. You know, your local pet stores,
Yeah.
you know, had them. And I was like, okay, cool. Did my research and whatever else. When Carrie and I met and decided to move in together, we were like, okay, so we have 3 bearded dragons, we have a chameleon, we have this scorpion. And then Carrie said, do you have any interest in snakes? And I'm like, yeah, sure, we should get one. And what was our first snake, Carrie?
It was California
California
King.
king.
Our first snake was not a ball python.
Damn.
That's okay. That's
That's
cool.
all right. Yeah.
California king snake. Yeah.
And and then from there we're just like, oh, like actually it was a video from, you know, the original Snake Bites TV, and Brian Barczyk was talking about ball pythons. I'm like, yeah, like why don't we get one, you know? And of course one turned into the whatever, couple hundred or
Potato
whatever that we have
chips.
now. But it's like, but yeah, it's so I like grew up with animals and reptiles. Like I think my first ever reptile was, I think I was 11, and I, you know, got a veiled chameleon or whatever. So I've had and kept reptiles right from when I was a kid, and so it just kind of grew from there. But yeah, I never. My mom was like, and still is to this day, like terrified of snakes. And so I was never allowed a snake. Like she's like, I don't care if you have all the lizards, as long as they've got legs. Like I don't care, it's fine. Or fins. I had a lot of fish, as Vera said. But and then so that was totally fine. And then, but you know, I loved snakes. I just was never allowed to keep them. And then eventually we ended up with this kind of, I mean, it's not a massive collection of snakes, but it's, you know, it's a decent size or whatever. But yeah, it's funny because people are like, oh, like, you know, you must have started off with ball pythons. No.
And honestly, that's why we still keep everything else that we do. We just, ball pythons was never going to be the only focus. I think it was the easiest breeding focus for us. But, you know, there's a couple other things that we still try to dabble in, small amounts of breeding. But this was, that ball pythons just seemed to be the best fit for what we knew at the time when we started it was going to work for us.
That's awesome. So what other species do you keep besides ball pythons?
So we have some colubrids. So we have some corn snakes. We have a Pueblan milk snake. We have 2 hognose. I just won off of a Facebook thing, funny enough, a mandarin rat snake.
Ooh,
so that just got out of the
there you
collection.
Those are cool.
It is a beautiful, little boy, man. I've always wanted one since I've seen a picture, and we were just like, and finally one came up to win, and I won it, and I was like, that was the lottery for me. I was like, holy shit.
So you've
cool.
used up
And then
all of
we
your
have-
luck for 2020.
Yeah.
I did.
Like that's the highlight of 2020, right?
I'm
And actually, did we even win it in 2020? I think you actually won it in 2020.
I think won it in 2019. but
Okay,
because of the
that's
whole
fair. That's fair. That
COVID
makes
and
more sense.
shipping and everything. So God knows, I still might have a chance this year.
But yeah, and then we've got some boas, just like, you know, Colombian red-tailed boas, got some sand boas, Brazilian rainbow boas.
A Cal albino.
And then we've got
we got a rainbow boa. We've got a Kenyan sand boa that Robin mentioned earlier.
We think we might look into eventually breeding some of that too. Like right now, it's just like, oh yeah, like they're cool and we have them. But eventually, wouldn't mind looking into breeding that. And then as far as like non-snakes, we've got, you know, tegus, Savannah monitors, tarantulas, tortoises. We've got a silicata and a redfoot tortoise. And what else we got?
Chameleons.
Chameleons.
Peter's banded skink.
Yep.
Blue tongue skinks. Euromastics.
Yeah. Oh, Chihuahua geckos. We've got some breeding Chihuahua geckos.
Yeah, we got 2 sets of eggs from our breeder Chihuahua geckos. So
That's cool.
Yeah.
You guys run the gambit. Jeez, you guys are like, I got a little bit of everything here.
Yeah.
And then we've got birds, and we got like furry and feathered things too here too.
Yeah, Carrie's
So it's
Carrie's a bird
KB
lover,
Zoo.
so we have,
Yeah.
you know what?
It's not just KB reptiles, really, but
Yeah.
I'll tell you what we do is before this pandemic started, every time the kids brought a friend over, they had to leave money at the door.
That's right.
That's
right.
You guys want to see an animal? Here's your fee.
I love it. I love it.
That's how many. You know what, Brian Barczyk from the
I call them here too.
Yeah, toonies. Brian inspired me to do our own little mini reptarium here. I gotta fund these projects somehow.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
That is freaking awesome.
Money for
Yeah.
Great.
Oh man, that's awesome. That is
Yeah.
awesome.
So, like, birds, reptiles, mammals, a little bit of everything. But you kind of got started working at a lion safari, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, dude.
That is terrifying to me.
So my love of animals started early on too, but my parents were not, like, there was no dogs, no cats. I think my parents at one time when we were early teens got us budgies for me and my siblings, and that was about it. And my first job I got at 14, I applied at African Lion Safari because I thought I want to be around animals. Like, I really want to see if this is actually like a real passion for me, or if, like most, kids, you go from one love to another to another.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I worked at this place, and it is open from October to from May to October.
Mhm.
And it really is. It's got every animal you can imagine. You go on the guided bus tours, or you can take your cars in, and you can see elephants, zebras, rhinos, like everything, lions, tigers, whatever. They come right up to your car window. Obviously, there's no feeding because you don't dare stick your hand out, so windows up. But they'll come right up to your car. You take pictures. I mean, it was so cool. But my job, funny enough, is I only got hired for the maintenance crew. So I would walk around, paint a fence, work in the hay barn, do those kind of things. But at least I was able to see these animals. I was, walking around, and you pick up litter, but I could walk by the Birds of Prey show when it was going on, or I could walk by a monkey exhibit, or walk by these different animals and pretend like I was working, but really watch
and listen
what was going on.
Yeah.
And then I graduated from there up to being able to follow the elephant show. And what they do at the elephant show is they have 4 or 5 of these elephants, and they parade them around the park out in the public for people to see them.
Mhm.
And I got upgraded to actually being able to shovel their shit.
Hey.
Like that, I went home that day, the proudest moment of my life.
Smelling like poo.
Like, this is... So, and then from there, graduated where I got to eventually work the gates between different animals. So safaris, like most zoos probably, are gated off so that when you leave from lions and tigers, you go into baboons, and from baboons you can go into zebras and rhinos, and just so that there's gates separating animals that obviously can't be around each other, for circle of life type things. And I got to do that, and then from there I ventured off into different jobs, but that was probably it's something I'll never forget was working there.
That's
freaking
really
awesome.
cool.
That's freaking awesome. Hell yeah.
But I'm gonna tell you straight up, big cats scare the crap out of me. So
I went to school with a kid who was like, I want to own tigers and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, why? Why the fuck? And he's like, they're just so cool, man. And I'm like, it's gonna kill you. And he's like, well, you work with snakes, and snakes are gonna kill you. And I was like, I'm sorry, my 3-foot corn snake is not going to injure me the same way your 700-pound tiger is going to injure you.
I agree.
The funny thing is that Barros's closest call while working there was actually from an ostrich.
I'll tell you a quick short story. So I was working the gate between the monkeys and baboons and stuff like that, to where you get into ostriches and zebras and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And these baboons would oftentimes stay on people's cars, and you had to scare them off.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where these cars were starting to try to pass through the gate, and the baboons were catching up. So I had to close the gate and then radio in for help so that somebody in one of the patrolling trucks could come by. But when I closed the gate, I stepped into what I thought was the safer zebra, ostrich, all that kind of stuff. And lo and behold, about 6 feet from me was the biggest male ostrich I have ever seen in my entire life. I radioed in and said, oh my God, I'm stuck, because I couldn't get to my hut because it was about an equal distance from where my safety hut was to where this zebra was. And I was like, oh, our ostrich. And And I was like, holy shit. So I radioed in. I said, what do I do? And they said, is it the big male? And I'm like, yeah. And they said, that's killer. And I'm like, you're shitting me. And they were like, no, we call that one killer. And I'm like, you're playing games. They said, don't move. We'll come and scare it away. But we have to scare it away from you. So just have your cane in hand. So I'm like, okay, no problem. Next thing you know, I hear rubber bullet gunshots.
Damn.
Like stuff into the ground so that they could scare it in the opposite direction from me.
Yeah.
I shit my pants. I didn't know if I was running, leaving, coming, going. It was a highlight.
That is insane.
Yeah,
dude, you know it's going to be a good time when they're like, that's killer, bud.
That's killer.
And I'm like, come on, you guys are playing. And they oftentimes did that, so I really don't ever know if that ostrich name was killer. But when they said that to me, I was like, someone's playing with a young man's heart. Do not do that.
They had a meeting afterwards. They're like, you told him his name was Killer, didn't you?
Yeah.
And it's funny because Barrow's still, we've got 5 different, birds here, and he's still kind of, a little bit leery, and I think it's, some sort of, post-traumatic stress.
I think so.
I feel that.
Situation.
I feel that.
Maybe so.
As soon as they come near him, he's like, get it away.
Yeah, I won't lie. The birds are Carrie's thing. When they fly and they land on my shoulder and they start picking, at my earring and necklace and stuff, Carrie and one of our oldest kids, Evan, that's their jam. I like, okay, you look cool from there, talk all you want, but get off my shoulder.
My ears are stretched, and so if a bird just accidentally nipped it, it would cut it right in half. And so I don't mess with birds. I don't mess with birds.
Yeah. I watched my mom get nailed in the forearm by an umbrella cockatoo.
Oh,
and,
damn!
I was like, I watched it happen, and it was a genuinely friendly bird up until that point. And I was after that, I had experiences with macaws and generally all positive experiences. I saw that and was like, fuck birds.
Yeah, forget that.
I was like, I'm good.
Yeah, Barrow's is the same way. So we recently just got a scarlet macaw, and I don't know if you know, scarlet macaws can have a bit of an attitude or whatever.
Oh,
So
yeah.
he was an older guy. Yeah, couldn't look after this bird and blah, blah, blah. And so they just kind of surrendered the bird to us. It's about 15 years old or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, yeah, for sure. I've always wanted a macaw. And I've done a lot of research, especially on scarlets actually. So we took it in. And I'm like, I'm going to take it out. Barrow's looks at the beak. He's like, no, fuck no. He's like,
nah. I'm not helping you.
I'm done.
Dude.
I will start running and jogging for fitness, which I do not do. Just so I can get away from this goddamn bird.
Oh my gosh.
He's good to go.
And this is where it is. So when I visited you guys at Nerd, I would throw a 20-foot retic on my shoulders.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
have the biggest smile. You take out that 4-foot macaw, I'm running, man.
Yeah.
I'm Ben Johnson all of a sudden.
I hear you, dude. When I was a kid, I worked at a local pet store chain, and the HQ store was one town over from us, and they had a big hyacinth macaw.
Ooh, damn!
And gorgeous macaw. They had this huge enclosure for it. It was pretty much the size of a small room, about the room we're in right now. And man, I remember watching that thing crush walnuts
like nothing.
Like nothing. And I was like,
it was made of butter.
That is the coolest, most horrifying, fascinating thing I have ever seen, and I'm staying away from it.
You're like, that's my knuckle right there.
Dude,
it just crushed it instantly.
We do the same. Your story is our house exactly. I try to push a walnut between my hands and try to squish it to open it up for the bird.
Yeah.
Here I am struggling, breaking a sweat. I hand it over to this thing, crunch, and it's open. And I'm like,
nothing.
It can be my fingers.
Yep.
Yeah. No.
That's a knuckle right there.
Yeah. Nope. Pass on all of that shit.
Yeah, thank God for the kids. They're what we practice on. I better say, just in case anybody, just kidding, everybody that would be listening to this, Carrie's our guinea pig.
Oh my gosh. So you guys are pretty active on social media. And I think I've seen videos of you guys with a lot of who we would now, thanks to social media, really consider very relevant people in the industry. So what got you guys kind of started on the social media path and made you want to do, I mean, everything that you guys do?
So this is actually a good story.
Yeah.
It involves a few people you guys will know well. I'm going to let Carrie tell it.
So, well, it'll be both of us.
Okay.
So, first of all, like Brian Bartek has always been like somebody, like I said, when we first got our first ever ball python, it was because of, videos I have watched from, Brian Bartek, and I was like, okay. And then I found out that he was going to one of our big show every year at the CRB, the Canadian Reptile Breeders Expo. And I found out that Brian was going to be there, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'd never even been to like any, and this is like actually embarrassing to say now that we're actually like the host of the show, but at the time I had never been to one of our expos, and I was like, I'm going because I want to meet Brian Bartek.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I went, and it was awesome. I was like, like fangirling or whatever, and that was awesome. And then the next year he came back, and I said to Barros, like, you have to come and meet this guy. So he did. And when we met him, it was awesome. We chatted, got tons of information, and Barros was kind of asking some questions during a question and answer period thing that they had with him there.
Mm-hmm.
And one of Brian's friends, Ben, was there at the time, and they got chatting. Anyways, they were like, hey, you know what? Why don't you guys come to Tinley? And we're like, well, what's that? Like we were so
what's
we're like, what? Like, what is Tinley? And they're like,
what's a Tinley?
Like, okay. So we did, and it was that moment because we were actually waiting in line to say hi to Brian again.
Well, and that happens to be the last Tinley that Brian, reptile show that Brian ever did.
The last Tinley that Brian ever did. It was that show. And we were waiting to kind of chat with him or whatever, and Barros hears this voice behind us, and he was like, oh my God, he's like, that's that Miguel guy. And I was like, who? And he's like, Miguel, like always blowing python.
Now,
like,
keep in mind, as Carrie's telling the story, Miguel, and we'll openly tell you this, Miguel was very small at the time.
He had what, a few videos out. Like, Barros had been following him, like video 2, and he probably had like less than 20 videos out at the time or something like that. And I was like, who's this, right? So Barros was like,
so now her current best friend in the whole world.
Like my brother from another
at that time when we tell the story, he gets so mad. It's like she was like, "Who's Miguel from Always Evolving?"
He was like brand new, and we had no idea. And so, anyways, we got chatting with Miguel after, and he wanted to put Barros on the vlog because he was like, "Oh, you guys sound like you're not from around here. Like, I don't hear a Canadian accent. Maybe you guys do. I don't know." But Miguel was like, "You guys don't sound like you're from around here." And I'm like, and Barros was like, "No, we're from, Ontario, Canada, whatever." And he's like, "Well, let me put you on the vlog." Well, shit you not, Barros forgot everything. He didn't know our name. He didn't know our Instagram. He didn't we weren't on YouTube at the time, but he didn't know anything. So he was so embarrassed. He's like, Carrie, he's like, I gotta find this guy again and ask him to for a redo. That's so embarrassing. So he did, and Miguel was like, yeah, sure, no problem. So we got talking to Miguel at that time, and he was like, guys, you should start a YouTube channel. And we're like, I don't, we're both kind of awkward. I don't think so. But he really, it started from meeting or knowing Brian and, seeing his content and his information, everything on YouTube to, that going to Tinley, and then Miguel being like, listen, guys, you should really start push social media, and
I'll tell you why.
It really started from there.
So you guys probably know this about Miguel too, but Miguel said, as far as research goes, he says there's not a ton of Canadian YouTubers.
Yeah.
And he thought at the time, he said, you guys have, and this brings us back to the very first question you guys asked, you guys have a market over there that's kind of untapped still. Mm-hmm. He said, you guys, a husband and wife team, jump on YouTube. You guys, if you push it and really work with, what you're telling me you're passionate about right now, he says you guys might be able to really make a go out of it. So here we are at this big super show in the U.S., and I'll tell you, every Tinley almost is our Canadian Thanksgiving. Yeah. So that first Tinley we ever did, we drove 8 hours after work on a Friday, woke up early, went to the show on Saturday, stayed for the show for probably only 6 hours, maybe less, maybe 5, and then drove home that same night to be back home in Canada for Saturday night, Sunday morning, so we could celebrate Thanksgiving with our
families are like, and it's interesting, and I don't know like about you guys, but like our families, like nobody in our family is involved or even interested in anything reptile, like at all, or really like I shouldn't say not interested in animals, because like our families have like cats and dogs and stuff like that, but like as far as anything outside of that kind of normal, I'll quote normal, it's like people don't. So they're like, oh, like, what are you guys doing? Like, why are you going all this way? And we're like, you know what? Like, it's something that we're passionate about, and we want to do this. So we kind of got a little bit of a hard time. Like,
so there was no missing that Sunday. Let me put it to you that way.
Yeah.
We had to be back, or we were still going to get slapped.
Now they're a little bit more understanding, but at the time, like, they weren't.
Now because they've seen, and going back to your original point of this was, social media. Now that they've seen our passion with it, the trips we've been on, the people we've got to interview and talk to, our collection growing, the birthday parties, the community events, the school events, they really know that this now is not just a, something they do for fun. This is something that they really, but it's more than just for fun now. So, what they'll say, okay, if it falls on Thanksgiving again, you guys go out, enjoy yourself. When you come back, there'll be food waiting for you guys. Come by, say hi, hugs and kisses, pick up your leftovers, and away you go.
Yeah. And it's so awesome that like I say, that's why. Well, when was it? October. I don't even know what month it is anymore because of all this stuff. So like October when we got to meet like Kevin for the first time, and you guys, right? It was like it's so awesome because again, like even though when we first kind of started out, we hadn't had a chance to meet Kevin and any of you guys, but it's videos like nerd videos and content and learning from you guys that have made us want to, be better keepers and learn like as much as we can about, these different species out there and stuff. So there's just so many influential people out there, including yourselves, that have just been so, important, and we're so thankful for. So sorry.
Well, man. I mean, that's awesome, man. Shout out to Miguel. Even though he still fucking snubbed me when I was out in California, that little bitch. But anyway, so shout out to Miguel for doing that, because, I mean, like, that's one of those things where, like, I remember when I was doing YouTube years ago, Brian was probably one of 3 reptile guys that were doing anything really consistent on YouTube. I'll say that.
Yeah.
And I remember kind of getting into doing YouTube stuff myself, and it was always about like trying to find that niche, and then it was a little bit easier in the U.S. And now it's gotten quite a bit harder because there's so many U.S. channels, and there's so much more emphasis now on editing and crazy thumbnails and all of that shit. And like, I am horrible at editing and thinking about thumbnails and shit. I'm not good at that at all. Like Donnie, like.
No, you said it right, and that's why I'm so glad that we're a team, and I think that's what helped Miguel see that when we first started off. And I honestly, if it was just me individually trying to do this, I probably wouldn't be able to. And if you ask Carrie,
do you even know how to like turn on the computer to edit it?
Yeah, I've never edited a video in my life. Never. I tried one time, and the iPad went across the room. Carrie was at the computer, and I was like, she's like, I'll put you on something easy. Like, she's like, take the iPad and try doing the same video I'm doing, but use iMovie. She's like, all you got to do is drag here and click this and move this, and I'm like, fuck this.
I used to hate editing stuff, man. So I get you.
See, that was the fun part for me when I used to make YouTube videos. I actually enjoyed editing the video and putting little intros in there and all that stuff. That was my favorite part.
Can I hire you then?
Yeah.
I don't do that anymore. And the thing is with Donnie's like our video guy, so he does all the editing. But I think about things from the way that I would edit a video. So like he just put out a video of me handling blood pythons, and as soon as he posted it, he came in a little bit later, and I was like, "Why did you edit the intro like that? You should have cut it this way and did this thing." And he's like, "You need to shut up."
Like, don't tell me how to do my job, bro.
Donnie was great with us too. So Donnie and Carrie still talk a little bit about different ideas and stuff like that. But after our visit with you guys, Donnie was very influential in helping us come up with a couple of different ideas and way of looking and way of thinking. So the beauty of having, you know, Brian, you guys, Miguel, Donnie, different people have helped us with like editing information and how to do YouTube properly and just try to make the best run at it has been super helpful.
I think like our biggest challenge is just like, you know, we do have 5 kids, and under normal circumstances, like right now it's a little bit different because it's the COVID thing, of course, but you know, Barros works crazy hours. I have 2 jobs plus all of our, you know, animals and you know, all of that schedule of cleaning and handling and blah blah blah. So like, we're like, crap, like we gotta get a video out there. So for us, the biggest challenge has just been consistency with getting like content out there. And then I'm like, oh great, now I gotta spend like however many hours editing this video, and I've got, you know, a shit ton of other stuff to do. So like, thankfully our 13-year-old has taken like a huge interest in video editing, and he's like all up, you know, social media is like, he's so interested. So I'm like, you know what, maybe you can kind of start, let's just like try it out, and he can, you know, maybe edit a video or 2, because if he can do it and he can do it well, hell yeah, I will pay my own kid to edit her videos and hopefully get
there you go
there, because if it can save me a few hours in doing it, like heck yes, like I'm
well,
going to do it.
If you look at our last couple of thumbnails, he's been the one taking care of it for us, and when he comes back, he tries to talk all like computer geek to us. He's like, oh, I changed this on this, and I dragged this over. And I'm like, just shut up. Here's the money. What you just said. I went into Photo Editor and did this and Adobe that. I'm like, I don't even spell Adobe. Just keep going, kid.
I think that's awesome though, and that's literally a testament to how involved and how you can kind of creatively approach everything involved in the industry within your own family unit. You know, I mean, this. I remember again when I was doing YouTube videos, I had a couple of friends who would come help me out, like clean my stuff, and I would like start to get them involved in the videos. Like, hey, we're gonna do this, you know, stupid little skit, and I need you to do blah blah blah. And they're like, okay, cool. And like back then, like again, nobody gave a shit about editing, so you could pretty much put up whatever. But you know, I mean, like now it's kudos to your kid for doing that, because Jesus, I don't want to do it and stuff. I literally so Donnie made me get a gimbal for my phone because I'm trying to kind of kick my YouTube back up a little bit, and he was like, you know, I'll come help you out, but it would be super helpful because I've got to edit stuff for Nerd if you were able to record some stuff and then send it to me and I can edit it and work that way. And I was like, okay, that's cool. So I got this gimbal for my phone. So now I got to figure out how to use a fucking gimbal.
I have one too. I'm like, I know how to turn it on. That's basically it.
Your best bet is to be drinking.
Right.
Yeah. Because as much as that thing moves around, you can just move around with it, and everything.
It's cool.
Cool. One time, Barros tried to use our gimbal, and like everything was basically like up his feet. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
He's like, I don't know. I was like, using the gimbal. I was like, oh my god.
I was trying a new approach.
Use that again.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's crazy, and it really is. It's amazing at how much of a forefront social media has become to the industry. You know, like the from developing your business and your clientele, like it really is interesting. And I think a huge portion of that, especially now, is as the younger generation kind of comes up, you know, and I say young, but still thinking like young adults. So like 17 to 22, you know, like that kind of work, like those kids are gathering research from social media. You know, as detrimental as that can be quite often, you know, YouTube is a go-to source for that. You know, so you're developing your potentially lifelong clientele through your social media, you know, like especially when, you know, you think about areas that have reptile shows, you know, like, I mean, Canada, for instance, I don't know how many reptile expos you have, but I'll just throw like a number, like if you have 3 expos in all of Canada, right? Just throwing the number out there. All of the people that can't get to those expos are now searching you through YouTube or through social media. So that's your essence of a reptile show.
Mhm.
The people that you don't get to meet face to face are meeting you through social media. So what you put out there is a huge representation, no matter how small it is, you know, because I mean, if you film for 3 hours to get, you know, 2 10-minute videos or whatever, you know, they're really just seeing a sliver of what you guys are about and what you guys do and all that, but it still means the world to these people, you know, and it's amazing, you know, and the relationships that you establish with these people just off that alone, you know, is amazing, you know, and
you said it.
Go ahead.
You said it right there for sure. No, you said it perfect, because I'll give you an idea. Our expos here, we have one every month before, obviously, this whole pandemic started. We have a small expo, so nothing massive like our CRBE. But we have one, you know, good-sized expo every month that covers Ontario. So we're not talking about the eastern part of Canada, the western part of Canada, just the Ontario province and Quebec. And that show goes on, like I said, monthly. Everybody can come down and take a look at it. And that's where, when we got asked to become the hosts of that, it was an eye-opener for us, because, and I think the promoter at the time had seen it too, most of the stuff we were doing was visiting a lot of people in the U.S. and showing off a lot of the U.S. expos that we were going to. We all came together and thought of this as a great platform to now show off even our smaller monthly expo that we have, just to, you know, represent the breeders, represent ourselves, show the hobby, so that, you know, some of the smaller people who, like, I didn't know about expos until Carrie told me about that first one we ever went to. I think it opened the door to so many more people. Now you see our, what we used to call our smaller monthly expos, turn into some really big numbers, like our end of year one and beginning of year one. And I know they're only a month apart, and you think, wow, it shouldn't be this busy. I don't know if people are buying Christmas gifts for each other, and then people have leftover money after Christmas in the new year, want to kick it off right. They are packed, so much so that there's lineups outside in the snow waiting to get in.
That's
and
awesome.
It's done a lot for us. It's done a lot for the growth of the Canadian hobby.
And I think in general, a lot of that growth in, like, whether it's our show, whether it's shows in the U.S., wherever it is, social media, as much as, you know, I kind of have like a love-hate thing a little bit sometimes with social media, but, you know, the positivity that comes from it is, like, you know, now you're seeing that growth. Like the reptile shows, you know, are getting busier, and because you know, there's more exposure. There's so many people putting YouTube videos or Instagram posts or Facebook feeds or whatever the case may be, and people are getting, like, really excited and interested about it. And, you know, we're seeing here a huge, like, I look back from, like, you know, even a couple of years ago to our shows to what they are now, and it's not even comparable. Like there's so much more.
Well, when the promoter has to increase the hall size, so we have to, like, change venues. So we're in the same building all the time, but we've actually been able to upgrade the space. So instead of being in hall 1, we'll be like in hall 6. It's a bigger space, and
and, you know, and I really do think, like, a lot of that comes down to, again, like the social media, and you see other people there vlogging it, or, like I said, like, you know, tagging whatever the expos on the Instagram page or whatever the case may be, and just that exposure, and like to see people's excitement over it. And like in today's day and age, especially right now when you can't really go anywhere, you know, you're YouTubing things, or, you know, checking out Instagram stories, whatever. So, like, I think social media, as much as sometimes I'm like, I'm like, Barrow, you deal with it, because I don't even want to look at it today. You know what I mean? It is. Well, I mean, it really does.
You know,
and
I think what makes me happy walking around Expo sometimes, and it's cheesy, but I love it, is everybody wearing different shirts. Whether it's your own shirt as a breeder, or whether it's somebody has some shirts from the U.S. Like, funny enough, and this wasn't planned for today, but it was in the video that we filmed yesterday and today. I have that hands. The nerd shirt, right?
Oh,
Hell yeah. I love that shirt.
But we walk around the expos, and, you know, you'll see a Always Evolving Python shirt. You'll see a RCR shirt. You'll see a Justin Kabelka shirt. You'll see an Ozzy Boyd shirt. You'll see a nerd shirt. You know, you see some of the Canadians represented, you know, amongst our shows and stuff. It's really cool that people use social media, shirts, hats, bracelets, whatever you can to really, you know, just grow the hobby. I have people that ask me about shirts when I'm walking around doing groceries, or when I go to play soccer, when I go to my, you know, club soccer stuff, and I have a shirt that has a big snake on the back, and people are like, what is that? And I'm like, oh, it's a breeder friend of mine out of, you know, Winnipeg or something. And someone's going, holy shit, like this is really, because people who are not in the hobby just don't appreciate how big it is, and I think how big it's going to get.
100%.
I think, and that's awesome that you guys have been seeing so much growth and stuff, especially with the utilization of social media, because there's so much that it has to offer. You know, I mean, I think in the U.S. the industry as a whole is not old. You know, we're talking just a few decades. You know, if you really think about it. I mean, there's certainly people who have been keeping longer than that, but like the industry is a glimpse of what it is now is, you know, 3.5 decades old or so in the U.S. So it's not the oldest thing going around, but because it has that history, social media certainly has played a role in the current growth over the last 5 or 10 years. But it already had such a huge foundation where social media has certainly helped, but it wasn't the most necessary catalyst for growth. You know, it certainly is proving to be that now, but because we've had so much in the past, we haven't really needed it. But to see it work so well in other countries where the industry is very much in its infancy, you know, within the first decade and a half, maybe going on 2 decades in certain countries, it's interesting to see how social media really has affected those numbers in a very tangible way. Not just like, oh yeah, we saw an extra 150 people through the door. It's like, no, there were an extra like 500 or 1,000 people that came through the door of this because of the reach of social media. And that really, really is impressive, and shows, you know, how much potential growth the industry still has globally, not just, you know, country to country, but globally.
And you're right. It's funny enough, when we tell our family that we have now made friends who, you know, have offered us visits all over the world, the UK, Belgium, South Africa, Asia, Australia. I mean, these are people that I'm not saying that we've just talked to once in a time. People from those places I just mentioned are people that we talk to on a probably weekly to monthly basis, always telling us, you know, when this is over, come on out, or before this whole thing started, you know, pandemic-wise, you know, you got to come out and visit the UK. I'll set you guys up over here. Somebody in Australia, you guys got to come out to Australia, which has been a dream of Carrie. Let's go out here. We're going to do some herping. You guys can stay at this location. We'll drive over to this one. I mean, those weren't opportunities given to us in our normal everyday life before we started this. So to think that the reptile hobby has, social media has been able to get us to go places. I've never been to California or Texas.
Well, I'm not even gonna. Let's not even forget that. I like when Jeremy, when you mentioned about us going to get the nerd, I was like, what? Like, what? Like, we're going to dinner? Like, so like, never mind going across the world.
Yeah.
Like, it was just like, holy crap. Like,
and we're like 9 hours driving, or do we want to fly this thing? And we're like, you know what? Carrie and I have this relationship that, you know, people have always talked about when it comes to us. We can sit in the car for 9 hours and enjoy each other's company and make it like because I like to sleep. And, you know, we enjoy each other's company, even when I'm driving. You know, we enjoy the conversation. We enjoy, like, getting psyched up for the visit and everything. And then when we left your place, when we left Nerd and drove back, I'm telling you, we hit probably 2 different snowstorms. And, you know, like lulls where it was just quiet. And we just kept talking about, oh, my God, do you remember that? Did you see that? Were you in the room when I was looking at that? Can you believe we held this? Like, we're looking at pictures. We have photographic evidence of holding, like,
Boland's pythons.
You know, snarfles, and this dwarf came in, and Asian water monitors, and it was kind of like, holy shit. Seeing black dragons popping out of the egg. We're like,
that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yep.
This is fuck. Like, I couldn't. It wasn't your normal everyday experience. I'm gonna tell you that.
And it was just, like, I mean, we're so thankful like that experience.
Well,
100%.
Yeah, and Kevin on Sunday morning pulling out stuff in the hallway saying, you know, you might want to grab your camera and see this, and all of a sudden, you know,
when he started doing that, okay, all right. So if I didn't already tell you guys. When he started doing that, I'm legit like scratching my head like, when the fuck did he decide to do this?
Yeah.
Because he didn't tell us. I didn't get a fucking text.
No heads
nothing.
up, nothing.
It was just like, oh, I'm just gonna pull some shit out, and I'm like, when did that freaking light bulb go off for you to decide to have this awesome idea? I mean, cool, bro, but what?
Yeah, like it was insane, and I feel like we were like a little bit like overwhelmed because like when I was going through like all of the footage, and I was like, oh my god, like we didn't even say anything.
We were quiet, like
do anything,
deer in headlights.
Yeah.
Deer in headlights. We were just like, and I felt like I wanted to say so much more and ask so many questions, but I was honestly stunned when you have a gaboon viper right nose to with your camera, and Kevin's going, just don't move. Let me get a really good shot for you. And I got this gaboon viper that's like a foot away from the lens of my camera.
Yeah.
Carrie's holding on to the back of my shirt saying, do not take another step. She's like honestly, crazy experience. Like, just, we can't thank you guys enough.
Oh, man. And you guys already know that you are so welcome to come back.
Oh, hell yeah.
It so needs to happen.
Yeah, and when we come back, we won't be so like deer in the headlights. Deer in the headlights, you know.
You say that. You say that, and then we're going to show you even more shit that you didn't even get to look at yet. And you're going to be like...
we're going to get an hour down the road and go, fuck, it happened again.
It happens. It definitely happens.
Yep.
Oh, dude. and honestly, that was our first... So, Jeremy, yourself, we had talked to you many times, you know, through social media and stuff and whatever. And then you set up at Tinley the conversation with Kevin, and we actually got to go behind the booth. And that's when I first had my first talk with Rob ever. And I was like, you know, you don't know what to expect when you first see people. And I'm like, is everybody going to be as friendly as Jeremy was? And then talking to Rob and a couple other guys that were there.
And you're like, nope, nope. Everybody sucks
these guys
except
are
Jeremy.
assholes.
No.
What the fuck?
I was that. Oh, no. It was such a good experience. Rob was pulling out animals for us and, you know, getting stuff on video. And then when we got there, it was the same thing. We're going like, oh, are people going to remember who we are? Is it going to be like, you know, who are these guys just showing up, whatever? But then, you know, Rob's pulling out stuff, and he's got us on the tour with him, and he's like just making sure we got all the right shots we wanted and walking through with us. I was just like, you guys are the shit.
What I like, something that like I took 100% from our trip to Nerd was like, so, you know, we've got, you know, we don't have like huge things here. We've got, you know, boas and stuff like that. I know, but like, when was it? Oh, I was holding the Bolin's python. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Kevin, and it kind of came towards my face. Kevin's like, stop doing that. And I was like, what? And I was all like, oh my gosh, Kevin's yelling at me. and he's like, you need to just like look at the animal's behavior and like be more confident. And he's like, but I was like, holy shit, like, if Kevin McCurley is going to give me advice on how to handle these animals, I am absorbing like every single word that's coming out of his mouth. You know what I mean? And it was just, he kind of referenced like dogs and, you know, how you have to be confident. And I'm like, oh my God, like I tell the people the exact same thing with my Great Danes when they come in the house and they're like, holy shit, these dogs are huge. I'm like, just be confident with them. They're okay. And I'm like, it's no different than the snakes that I'm holding right now. You know what I mean? And it was just like the way that he worded it. And I was just like, it was just like a aha moment. I was just like, wow, like the monster himself is like telling me this, and I'm just like, wow, you're so right. It was so awesome.
What's the next thing he does? He takes you into the room to ultrasound a Bolin's python.
And I'm like,
I'm like, what the hell is happening here?
I know.
I've never used an ultrasound. I've never seen it.
Like a Bolin's python.
A Bolin's python being ultrasounded. I'm like,
you know, and it was like, even though it was like a whirlwind kind of weekend that we were there, it's something that in so many different levels, it just like it took back, and it was just like, wow, like it was so incredible. We can't wait to come back for sure.
Yeah.
Like,
hell
for
yeah.
Sure,
and I can't wait to get Kevin up to Canada again, because
it's
been way too long.
Yes.
Apparently, they're aiming to still have the Canadian Reptile Breeders Expo open in September. That's the goal. So we'll keep you guys posted.
Yeah.
They
If
want to make it happen.
You're looking for something to do in September, and they can still make that happen. I mean, that's one that we would love to, because before this whole thing started, we had told Grant, we have talked to Jeremy about it, and he's like, wow, that would be great to have Kevin come up and do one of those, because we like to have Carrie and I as the host have a sit-down portion every couple of hours with some guests that come either from the U.S. or from different places, or some of our own, like, guys who have been in the hobby for 20 plus years, some of our pioneers.
Yep.
And we do a nice little sit down, the audience, gathers, and we ask some questions and stuff and just have a good time. And I mean, to have Kevin as one of the guests would be fantastic.
Yeah, I'm still, if you guys are still gonna have it, I'm still gonna work to get us up there.
Dude, when we did that video, I cannot tell you, because I think we did that in a 2-part or 3-part series.
Yep.
I cannot tell you how many people messaged me asking, when is Kevin going to come to Canada? When is the Nerd Crew coming? How was that experience? Tell me about it, because it was just one of those things where a lot of people have been able to see Brian's, and Brian from our part of Ontario is only like a 3.5-hour drive.
Yeah.
So it's more manageable for anybody from the Toronto. So Toronto would be like 4.5. But 4.5 Toronto down, everybody can get in to see Brian real quick.
Yeah.
To see you guys is a much longer drive, but I'm telling everybody, it is worth every mileage that you put on that car. You will absolutely love it.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. All right, so we're winding down to the end of this,
but
before we say our goodbyes,
we always have a question that we ask people.
Exactly. We always ask everybody one question. So that question is, drum roll. Boom. Okay. So we've been asking everybody, what is one thing in the realm of reptile, whether it's within your own collection or something you've seen on social media, that has you super excited?
KB Reptiles.
Boom, there it is. That's it. He's spoken.
The very first thing came to my mind. No. You know what? I honestly, it's a tough one, and I don't want to sound cheesy, but I want to say this right here: friendships.
Yeah.
Honestly, it has nothing to do, and people always say, you go to different shows to see the animals, but you really go to see your friends. I gotta say, I'm excited about a lot of different projects, a lot of different animals, but to have the chance to meet the people that we've met and be able to expand our reach to different places, and just whether, we've influenced somebody or somebody's influenced us. I mean, really quick, short, every show we go to the U.S., I think it takes us an hour longer to walk around because people say, oh my God, can we grab a picture? Can you sign a shirt? Can you do this? And that's humbling to small people like us. Like, we are by no means anything massive anywhere, but to have a few people that know we reached out to and to be able to talk to our friends and hang out, I think for me, that's got to be one of the highlights.
And I think a lot of the people that we have met, including you guys, it's like I personally don't think of like you, Jeremy, and Rob, like, oh, these are, people that we know from Nerd. Like, there are this group of people that we think of like as family, and what, we've gained this throughout our journey so far with the reptile hobby, and that is just, it's so amazing. And we're excited to even, to build more relationships as we go along. And that's just, for us, that's one of our number one things and all of this is just the amazing people that we've met and consider super close friends, like family, throughout our journey. So
yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hell to the yeah.
So about it.
I dig
all right.
that. Yeah.
Cool.
So if people want to find out more about you guys, where should they do that on all the social media places?
So for us, KB Reptiles 24 on Instagram and Facebook. I mean, reach out for sure, and then YouTube, same idea. KB Reptiles 24. Look us up. Look for that big, beautiful beard on my face.
Hell yeah!
and the deals that you can find in it.
Yeah, and all the crumbs that are located in it. I mean,
and Rob, we're sending a new shirt, by the way.
Oh yes.
Sweet.
So we got a new shirt in the mail currently for you because
and the right size for Donnie.
Yeah, and the right size for Donnie. So
that's a triple XL, right, for Donnie?
Yeah.
That's a pack.
Well, you know what, guys? much. I don't know if we
yeah.
rambled. I have a tendency to ramble, so I'm sorry if we lost half the questions you guys were going to ask. But
That's all good.
honestly, this has been absolutely. We love this.
I know.
Hell
we love
yeah.
you guys.
We'll have to do it again.
Hell yeah!
Yep.
Thank you guys so much for doing this with us, and it won't be the one and only time.
No.
I'm sure there will be plenty of other
There will
times
be more.
to talk about more reptiles.
If you ever want to chat, maybe next time I'll actually talk about something like genetics or actually something people want to hear about. But I just, I love.
But to be honest,
I love just rambling.
There's like so much more to this than just that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
And I'm not like bad mouthing anybody because there's so many people that know just oh my god, so there's encyclopedia about genetics and everything, and that's incredible and it's fascinating. I like to listen to that, but to us, there's just so much more to this hobby than that, and that's what where our passion lies for sure. So
Hell yeah.
We feel that.
Sweet
Yeah.
guys.
So we will talk to you next time. Thank you for coming on the show.
awesome.
Thanks, guys. Love
All right.
you, miss you. We'll talk to you soon.
Love
Yes
you too.
sir. Yes sir.
Take care.